Hey Spuddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and today we're going to be doing a tier list for the wonders in Civ 6. Keep in mind that I'm assuming that you're playing on deity difficulty and we're analysing general power levels. So if you play on a lower difficulty or if you're aiming for a specific victory, some of the things I say will not be applying to you, and a wonder could easily jump up a few tiers depending on your circumstances. The best example is the Great Bath, which is easily F tier in deity level games, but could also be a C or B tier in a lower difficulty games, or if you were to just conquer it from another player. Basically, every wonder in the game is a C tier or higher if you're conquering it. Lower ratings just mean it's not worth actually building yourself more often than not, the exception being Stonehenge, which is basically never worth building, as well as being a dead tile if you conquer it. Now, I do seem to be picking on a lot of English wonders in this tier list series, and I wonder why that is. Now, speaking of the Great Bath, that's what we're going to be starting with. We'll be going era by era and alphabetically through the wonders. I want to make sure you guys understand, though, that this is a tier list that's measuring how powerful a wonder is and how situational it is. So a really powerful wonder that is situational might end up being mid-tier or a tier lower, despite it being literally game-defining, like the Cristo Redentor and Eiffel Tower. I may do tier lists split up for different victory types if there's enough interest. If you do want to see me do a tier list split up by victory types, go ahead and leave a like on the video. Leave a comment as well asking for it. And if I get, I don't know, like 10,000 likes, I'll do it. I'm kind of wishing I had made that like 25,000 likes because I know for a fact you guys are going to click that button just to make me do this. God damn it. Anyway, there's 5 victory types, and if a wonder is only going to help you to win one of those, then it's only 20% as useful as a wonder that's always useful in every victory type. I'll try to let you know when a wonder is really powerful, but it's on a lower tier because it's situational. Now, to also give a little bit of a basic rundown of the tiers, S tier is basically like saying this wonder changes how you play the game, or it's just consistently superbly powerful. A is a little bit more like saying the wonder is consistently strong or situationally game-changing. The logic follows on down the list. The more situational the wonder is, the lower it goes. The more powerful it is, the higher it goes. There's a little bit of a push-pull relationship there. A really, really powerful wonder that you're not going to want to build in many games might end up in like B tier. Like I said, we're going to start off with the Ancient Era, and the very first alphabetically organized wonder in the Ancient Era is the Great Bath. It's actually a really, really damn good wonder. Its bonuses are incredible. You could maybe make an argument about the reduced flooding stuff is kind of annoying, but the problem is that it's just really weak because floodplains are almost better spent making aqueducts, dams, and industrial zones, which will end up crushing all the tiles that this wonder aims to improve. It also comes a little bit too early in the game, which is kind of paradoxical, in that the AI was going to pretty much build it right at the start of the game. And you need to choose between getting settlers and religion versus building this wonder. The bonuses of this wonder are really, really good, but honestly, it's better to think of this as a bonus to one of the AI players than something that you can potentially build yourself. It's really, really great if you can conquer it from the AI, but other than that, I wouldn't ever really decide to build this in my game. The Hanging Garden is, man, it's actually in a really similar boat to the Great Bath in that it's actually a pretty damn decent wonder, and it should theoretically go up pretty high, but the problem is it also comes a little bit too early into the game, and for that reason I'm going to slot it into E tier. And it might sound weird, but in the early game you're just really, really constrained by what you can actually do. And I mean, like, the growth is really, really nice. It gets you to your housing limit. If it gets you population faster, that means you start working your tiles faster. You get a huge return across your empire in this like really, really passive way. It's just I can't ever find time to build it in my games because I'm always settling or building more important wonders. To talk about the Oracle, this is a wonder that I have honestly, I have at various points in my time playing Civ, I have placed it anywhere from F to D to B to S tier. And I think right now, based on my last couple of games I've played, this wonder deserves to be S tier. And let me just kind of briefly explain why. A great person point in Civ 6 is kind of worth like say about 10 gold, 10 to 16 gold, and about half that in faith, right? Because if you were trying to buy that great person, that's how much it would cost, right? That's like the logic behind that decision. The Oracle gives you +2 great people points in the city based on the district that you've built, and you can double that with Pingala. So with a single campus, right? If you have Oracle and you don't build any buildings into it, you're going to be getting 3 Great People points per turn. That's as if you had built 3 campuses. And then you can use Pingala with the promotion that doubles Great People points to be getting 6 per turn. That's like a ridiculous amount of Great People points from the Oracle. And that's without ever talking about like the fact that you can faith purchase Great People cheaper. It's actually easily, like it's an insanely powerful wonder. I'm probably actually going to get to work on designing some early game strategies that are specifically designed around getting the Oracle. The Ancient Era actually starts off pretty strong in that it has 2 really game-defining wonders, and that's the Oracle and the Pyramids. And that's like the Pyramids, how could it go anywhere else? I really need to actually sit down and do a video just how powerful more build charges are. It's actually kind of insane. Like if you're building something for 50 gold and you're going to get +1 production on 3 tiles as a result of that, that's like a huge amount of return on investment. If you're getting that plus an extra one, like if you're getting +4 production on a tile, or +1 spread across 4 tiles, it's a ridiculous return on investment. The Pyramids is so powerful. It just jumps straight up to S tier without a moment's hesitation. That's how strong it is. Stonehenge, on the other hand, man, on paper, this is a great wonder. On paper, this is a great wonder, and it's a lot of fun to build. It's a lot of fun to play around. However, it's basically a mirror image of the Great Bath. It comes too early, and it doesn't really give me enough to want to build it. It costs about what it will cost you to build a holy site and a shrine, and in like 95% of my games, I would rather have a holy site and a shrine compared to the Stonehenge. The only time I think it's really worth building is maybe if you were trying to go for a warrior monk game, because the AI prioritizes that belief really highly, and you absolutely need to get first religion. Otherwise, I would probably just never build it. Temple of Artemis is another Ancient Era wonder that's actually really decent. It comes in at this like really nice sweet spot actually, because the AI doesn't tend to rush archery in my experience, so you actually have a little bit of time to do a couple of things before you swing back to grab the Temple of Artemis. And the food, the amenities, and the housing are super useful in your capital city, especially if you combine it with Pingala on all of his promotions to get a ton of science, a ton of culture, and a ton of Great People points as well, with all the housing and districts you're going to be building there. It's a wonder that honestly has the potential to snowball your empire, because it's basically like getting a neighborhood with a shopping mall and a food market on like turn 40, 50. Like really think about that. Imagine if you could pop that into one of your cities. That's what this can potentially represent for you. But that's it for the Ancient Era wonders. There's a few gems and a few duds. Now, arguably the best wonders in the game are in the Classical Era, because this is the time of the game where you're setting your empire up and you're laying out your plans for your win condition. So the wonders you're going to be picking up here are going to be really important for deciding which direction you're going in terms of your gameplay. The Great Lighthouse. Man, you guys I put up these like little community posts to kind of gather some feedback from people, and you guys really like the Great Lighthouse. And I'm going to be totally honest, I hate this goddamn wonder. Okay, let me explain, okay? It's cheap and it gives a cool effect, but it's just not worth building. Like I would much rather have like 3 triremes than this. And that's the value that this represents to me. I just can't ever really think of a situation where I want to build this other than I'm building it to get the passive tourism. The +1 movement isn't that big of a deal. I mean, I guess if you're playing like a super huge naval map and you're going for like a naval domination game or something, yeah, it can be useful because you can maneuver your navies around, but oftentimes movement isn't the limiting factor for navies, because navies move really fast already. The limiting factor is the amount of damage you can output to an enemy civilization, like to their cities, and whether or not their cities are coastal, and like movement doesn't really help you with that problem. So that's why I'm going to pop it down to F tier. The Great Library, on the other hand, is, man, this is a wonder I have a love-hate relationship with, because I basically spent like the first year of my game in Civ. In fact, I think I built this for the first time like a year and a half ago, and I've been playing Civ for like 3.5 years now. So like that just goes to show my disdain for the Great Library. However, I was shown the light by a player on the Civ subreddit, a guy called Civ Trader. He's not the guy who did the YouTube channel. He's like a different guy, just has the same name. And he showed me that there's actually a really powerful strategy where you can use the Great Library with early great riders and the Apadana and Pingala to multiply tourism and all this sorts of stuff, where you can get like a really, really fast, like sub turn 150 tourism victory. I actually did a playthrough as Sweden doing the exact strategy that he laid out. It basically involves, you go for the Great Library, you go for a theatre square, you go for the Apadana, and you also get Oracle. Then you slap Pingala into that city with the promotion that doubles the amount of great people points you get and doubles the amount of tourism you get, so that you can just pump out great riders and fill the city with it and generate a huge amount of tourism really, really early into the game. The problem was that strategy was actually so powerful that it got nerfed. And so it isn't really viable. I mean, it can kind of form a part of a greater overall tourism plan, but it's never going to be as strong as it used to be. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and leave it at B tier. B tier is basically like saying, this wonder is good, but you probably have to know when and how to build it to get the true value of it. I'd say in like an average game, it's probably like a D or maybe a C, but if you're playing to its strengths, it's definitely a B tier wonder, worth getting. Apadana is kind of in a similar boat to the Great Library, like a hugely powerful and useful effect, but it's like, man, it has all the drawbacks of all these wonders down here, like Great Bath and Stonehenge. The AI just tends to rush it and build it really early into the game. So I think I've maybe built Apadana like twice. And every other time I play the game, the AI builds it before I've even unlocked it. So for that reason, I'm just going to put it down in D tier. It's really, really powerful, just almost impossible to actually build. Moving on to the Colosseum. This is like, I mean, is there anywhere else for this to go? It's obvious. This is like the most obvious S tier wonder in the game. Everyone and their mother knows that this wonder is great. It's really straightforward. It can provide tons of culture. It can provide tons of amenities to like 4 to 6, maybe 7 cities, depending on how your empire is set up. And it fits into nearly any game plan. It's just super consistent, super powerful, always worth building. Colossus is a wonder that I actually love. I really like building the Colossus, but it's actually kind of not that great. It's basically a more useful version of the Great Lighthouse, but also being nearly twice as expensive, if I remember correctly. And it appears at a point in the game where your cities might only have like 10, 15, 20 production, and it's just going to take a long ass time to build it. But the extra trade route is amazing. But at the same time, like, I know you have to have a harbour to build this, but would that production not be better spent on things like builders, or maybe just building a harbour and lighthouse in a different city, rather than pumping so many resources just to get +1 trade route? If this gave you +2 trade routes, I'd put it up in B tier, and if it gave you +3, it would go straight to S tier. But as it is, I think it just belongs in D tier. It's like, it's a good wonder, but like, you just can't justify building it a lot of the time. Jebel Barkal is actually a bit of a surprise for me, because my instinct is to just drop it down into F tier and forget that it exists. But I spent a bit of time playing around with it and looking at some like actual numbers, and honestly, it's basically the Faith version of Colosseum. And so for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put it up into A. It's not amazing. And the biggest drawback is that it usually appears when I'm trying to build things like pyramids and Petra. And these are just better than Jebel Barkal. So I'm going to pop it down to B tier and just leave it in B tier. It's a really, really good wonder, but I feel like Petra and pyramids are just outshining it. So I'm going to kind of just bump it down a bit. Like, the way to think about it is, every city that's in range of Jebel Barkal has a +4 adjacency holy site, sans the great people points. Like, it's just really, really powerful. It's so damn good. It can generate you a ton of faith. It's just hard to justify building. That's the big problem with it. One of my favorite things about the classical era, though, is just how many of the wonders immediately go straight to S tier. And like, any player could tell you that the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus goes to S tier. Even if this wonder didn't give bonus yields on water, it would still be A tier. But the fact that it gives you double engineer charges, or extra engineer charges, and a ton of yields like science, culture, and faith on your water tiles, makes it go all the way up to S tier. And realistically, if there was a tier higher, I would put it on S+. It should really go higher, but I'm going to just leave it at S tier. I don't want to shuffle around too much, but it's just like, if you have a coastal city in your game, you should be building this wonder 100% of the time. Like, you should literally build this in every single game that you play forever. Mahabodhi Temple is, man, my instinct, again, this is another one of those wonders where I had to really sit down, read the comments on the posts that I made, and kind of taking that feedback, because my instinct was to just drop it down into like somewhere in the bottom half of the tree. But I really spent some time thinking about it. And like, if you really think about it, this wonder is like getting an injection of like 1,000 faith into your empire when you build it. And that's a huge amount of yield, because you get 2 free apostles and a couple of other small benefits from it, the wonder itself. The fact that it's also really good in a diplomatic victory game, and it gives you a little bit of faith, like, man, I'm actually having a hard time seeing why wouldn't you build this wonder in most of your games if you can. It does take a lot of investment to build, but I feel like the return on investment here is really damn good. Machu Picchu is probably going to be my most controversial take. I posted a preview of this tier list and people were eating me alive in the comments that I was putting it down in F tier. And that's just where it belongs. I'm sorry. And it's not because the wonder isn't powerful. Realistically, it's probably a B or A tier. Like, but here's the big problem with it. Machu Picchu, I have never ever built Machu Picchu, despite me trying. I have tried to build the Machu Picchu in so many of my games. But whatever it is about the deity AI, they just seem to rush the tech that unlocks Machu Picchu. And 90% of my games, before I even unlock Machu, the AI has finished it and built it. It's like, if you can conquer this from the AI, boom, A, S tier, B tier, whatever, somewhere up here, but you're never building this. Just forget about it. It doesn't exist. If you're playing on lower difficulties, you'll be able to get this wonder no problem, and you'll be able to have a lot of fun using mountains for adjacency. But otherwise, this wonder just doesn't exist to me. Now, a wonder that does exist to me is the Petra, and man, this is a wonder that could go from S to F tier, and the reason is because depending on where you put it, that's going to dictate how much value you get out of it. There's going to be a lot of people who argue that Petra should be S tier, and I agree with them. And there's probably some people who argue that it deserves to be down at like D or E tier, and I also agree with them. And so that for that reason, I'm going to put it in A tier. It's not a bad wonder. It can be really, really game changing, or it can be just kind of okay. So I think A tier is a really, really good spot for Petra to live in. On average, I think it's like expected value works out to an A tier wonder. Because even like a mediocre Petra is still pretty good, and an amazing Petra is like far and away game changing. But it's not a wonder without drawbacks. You know, you kind of have to be able to build it, and it's an expensive wonder. It takes a lot of production, and you're going to be wanting to build it in a city that's located on or near desert. And there doesn't tend to be a whole lot of tile yields for you to actually build wonders in desert. So you're probably going to have to settle on the edge of desert, which means that you're not getting the maximum potential of your Petra, because you're only boosting, let's say half your tiles are desert and half are grassland. You're only going to be boosting about half your tiles with it. So it's just one of those wonders where there's just a couple of drawbacks that really hold it back from taking the S tier spot. The final classical era wonder is the Terracotta Army, and it's an alright wonder. Like, it really, you know, kind of depending on your game, it'd probably be somewhere in the bottom of the list, and in another game it might be somewhere up higher, like maybe B or A. But I think on average it kind of works out to be a C tier wonder. It's just a decent wonder. If you know when to build it, it's just good, but it's not something I would go out of my way to get, basically. It's just a decent, okay wonder. And that's why I'm going to go ahead and leave it in C tier. Moving on to the medieval era wonders, around the medieval era is where kind of more specialist wonders start popping up. But it's important at this time of the game to sort of stop thinking about wonders as an era by era thing, because oftentimes I'll start unlocking Renaissance wonders before I've even unlocked some classical era wonders. And that sort of pattern stays true all the way through the game, so just kind of keep that in mind. And with that said, we're going to talk about the Huey Toakali, which I think is how you pronounce that. Watch me get slaughtered in the comments about how wrongly I pronounce that. It's an all-around okay wonder. It's just really hard to justify building. It's arguably worse than a lot of these classical and ancient era wonders, because even though it provides similar or better effects than some of them, it's like twice or 3 times as expensive as some of them. The price tag on this wonder is insane for the amount of production you're going to have when you unlock it. And the other thing is, it's on a bit of an awkward spot on the tech tree. I think I remember it's on military tactics or whatever, where you unlock pikemen. And that's just like a little bit of an awkward spot that doesn't, like, I tend to not research that until pretty late into my games. I wouldn't really consider making the Huey unless I had like maybe 4 to 6 lake tiles in my empire and I was getting like 3 or 4 amenities out of it. And so for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and just pop it down in D tier. It's a slightly below average wonder. It's a good wonder, don't get me wrong, but it's just really too situational and too expensive to come up a little bit higher. Hagia Sophia, on the other way, which is how I think you're supposed to pronounce that, is an A tier wonder. if you are going for a religion victory. Otherwise, it's an F tier wonder. Like just, no, there's absolutely no reason to ever build this in a game other than a religion game. That said, it is good enough to kind of crawl back up to C tier. I think I'm just going to pop it there for being a little bit situational. Maybe, actually, you know what? I'm going to pop it into B tier. I'm going to pop it into, it's a B tier religion wonder. That's what I would describe it as. You want to get this in a religion game, otherwise completely ignore it. Like, this is worth building in the right situations, kind of like the Great Library and the Jebel Barkal. It's just those situations can be a little bit rare compared to things like the Oracle, the Pyramids, and the Mausoleum, which are just always good to build. The Alhambra, on the other hand, oops, picked up the Angkor Wat there. The Alhambra, on the other hand, is a little bit more powerful, I would say, on average. So I'm going to pop it up into A tier. No, I think I'm going to pop it down to B tier. And here's why. Yes, these things are on like the same level, but this gives like a slightly weaker effect that's just more consistent. So I would build Alhambra in like most of my games if I got the opportunity to, but I wouldn't go out of my way to get it. It's really, really good actually in a tourism game, because there's certain military policy cards that are really damn good in a tourism game, like the military research that gives you +2 signs from your Renaissance walls. And there's like the logistic cards that lets you move your builders around more efficiently. The Alhambra is just a great wonder. Like all of the all of the policy card wonders are just really generally very good and should be built if you can get to them without too much difficulty. Angkor Wat is also a pretty solid wonder. I'm going to go ahead and pop it into B tier. And here's why. It's not game changing, but it does give you a decent amount of power in return for the investment that it demands. I've been building a lot more aqueducts in my games, so I often just have like room for an Angkor Wat, so I'll pop it down, get +1 housing and +1 population across my empire, maybe get a district a few turns sooner, maybe work a few extra tiles. It's actually, you know what? It's kind of like if the Hanging Gardens came at the same time, like if you swapped Angkor Wat and Hanging Gardens, in terms of like when they appear in your game, like if they were unlocked on the same technology, they would just swap. Like if you were like if Hanging Gardens was unlocked at the same time as Angkor Wat, both of these wonders do essentially the same thing for your empire, give you more population, which in the end gives you more yields over time. It's just the big problem with the Hanging Gardens is that it comes so early that the AI builds it before you ever touch it. So like that's why it's going to go ahead and pop into B tier. Chicken pizza. Man, this is a wonder that my heart tells me goes straight down to F tier. But I did listen to your guys' feedback, and it's mainly just down to the way that I play that I would put it down into F tier. And the reason for that is I just generally chop down all of my rainforest. There are sometimes I'll keep some rainforest around if I don't care about appeal and I want to have a nice productive tile and I don't want to have to plant forests. If you plan to pick this wonder up, it can actually be game changing. Like it could just be S tier, bam, S tier like a Petra, or maybe even A tier like a Petra. But I think just because I like chopping up my rainforest, I'm going to put it in A tier. I think A tier is a perfectly fine spot for this to go. And if you disagree with me, fight me IRL. Mont Saint Michel is probably actually, yeah, it's probably the most powerful religious wonder in the game. The ability to get martyr on your guys is just insane because it opens up so many more opportunities, not only for tourism, but also religion games. Like you can generate so much faith with the reliquaries belief. I'll admit, there was a time in the past where I would have just like put this wonder into F tier and then like just moved on with my life. Like, yeah, this wonder sucks and not really have thought about it. But I spent a bit of time with the wonder and I really listened to your guys' feedback. And I think it belongs in an A tier. It's an A tier religion wonder. So I'm going to pop it up there. Now, if you're not in a religion or tourism game where you're planning to do stuff with relics, I would probably just put it back down into F tier and forget where it belongs. But for now, I'll leave it in A tier. Meenakshi Temple, let me think. I'm kind of thinking maybe like B to D tier. My instincts are telling me that this is like an A tier religion wonder, like the Mont Saint Michel is an S tier religious wonder. But other than religion games, this is like F tier, forget it exists. That's what that means. That's what F tier means. F tier means forget it exists. Because if you're not going for a religion game, this wonder does not matter to you, even in the slightest. However, if you're in a religion game, it basically turns your gurus into like religious great generals, which is like ridiculously powerful. So I'm going to pop it into C tier, just so you know it's actually pretty good, but in my heart, this is an F tier wonder. Kotuku Inn, however, is a wonder that I have absolutely no problem taking a huge dump on because I want nothing to do with this wonder. The only redeemable thing about this is that it gives you a 20% faith income, which might be useful where you're going for a religion victory on a huge map and you have like a ton of people to convert. I would honestly just rather spend the 700 production that it costs to make this, to do holy site prayers, build holy sites, all that sort of stuff, and get an extra 200 faith that I can maybe get another apostle or missionary with a few turns sooner. However, that said, in a really, really long game or a really big game, this is going to pay off pretty well. So I'll keep it out of like the really, really low tiers, and I'll pop it into D tier as well. All right, so this is the point in the video where I'm about to blow like at least 75% of the people who watch this video's minds. Now, you might look at the Kilwa Kisaniwa, and I guarantee you a massive percentage of people have absolutely no idea what this wonder does, have absolutely no idea how strong it is, and think it's something that they should probably get every now and again. But I'm going to tell you right now, you should be building this wonder in every single one of your games. This is an S tier wonder, and I'm going to explain how it works. When I explain how this works to you, you're going to be like, why the hell was I not building this wonder? Like literally, just always build this wonder if you can. It's literally game breaking. Basically, imagine if Ruhr Valley boosted all yields in your empire by 20% instead of just production in a single city. Yeah, that's what Kilwa can potentially do. So how it works is, if you have suzerainty of a single scientific city-state, you get a 15% boost to the science in the city that built the Kilwa. If you have suzerainty of 2 scientific city-states, all of your cities get 15% more science. Yeah, that's literally game-breaking. And the city that built the Kilwa, that gets a 30% boost if you have 2 suzerainities. It's incredibly powerful in combination with Apadana. If you remember, Apadana gives you a ton of envoys every time you build a wonder. Like, I'm not joking. You should literally beeline this wonder always and in every single game. If you get this wonder and get suzerainty of 2 industrial city-states, you literally auto-win the game. If you can have multiple types of city-states suzerained, like with 2, you probably could fall asleep at your keyboard and still win the game. Arguably a candidate to have its own category of S+++ whatever. It's just insane. And I'm going to be honest, I had no idea this wonder was that good until like a couple weeks ago when I was really digging down and doing the research on the wonder tier list. Build this goddamn wonder. I'm even going to make it bigger for you. Now, I know I hyped up that last wonder, but the University of Saint-Cor is a decent wonder. It's not amazing, it's just decent. It's good. The problem is I never find time or feel like I need to build it. I often just don't have my cities set up to be able to place it down, and it's not worth designing a city around, in my opinion. However, it is actually really good and probably should be a wonder that I build more often. I'll give it a C because if you plant Magnus in this city with the supplies promotion, or whichever one gives you the food from trade routes, and you run some internal trade routes, it can be super powerful. It gives you a ton of yields. The only major criticism I have of this wonder is that I can pretty much always get better yields by just trading internationally with other players. That's it for the medieval era wonders. We're going to be moving on to the Renaissance wonders, and this is a section of the tech tree with some really, really, really powerful wonders that are always useful, and a couple of situational wonders that are rarely useful. It's a mixed bag, all things considered. But let's go ahead and jump in and start off with the Great Zimbabwe. The Great Zimbabwe potentially offers huge amounts of gold to isolationist empires that have to trade internally. But sadly, it's just kind of outshined by how powerful international trade routes are. If you're forced to trade internally, I would seriously consider building this wonder if you have at least 2 to 3 bonus resources in the city that you plan to build it. Otherwise, you can probably skip it. And for that reason, I'm going to pop it to the C tier. It's like in the situation where it's really, really good, it's worth getting. It's just that situation is pretty damn rare. Forbidden City, like this is just like, how does it go anywhere? Like this is literally just boom, straight to S tier. It's no discussion. Build it in every single game if you can. A wildcard policy slot is incredibly useful. It's easily the best free policy card wonder. Not much else to be said. It's just really good and really consistently useful. That should help you in every single game that you play. Casa de Contratación is generally useful for governor titles, but only situationally does it really deserve higher than D in my opinion. It's a good wonder, don't get me wrong, and like if you can build it, great, get it. But man, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to give it D. I'm going to give it C. Like if you can get it, I would get this wonder. But I wouldn't go out of my way. You can kind of live without it, is how I would describe this. Don't be afraid to skip it, but get it if you can. St. Basil's Cathedral is probably another really, really damn powerful relic or tourism or religion or tourism wonder. So I'm going to go ahead and pop it into A tier. The big problem is that it's just a little bit awkward. So I kind of want to put it into B tier, honestly. Uh, I tend to find the AI gets it before me, and I think I would actually build. Here's the thing though, I would build this before I built Chichen, so I'm going to put it in A. But I do recognize that Chichen is really good, so I'm going to put it up here. It's always good, it's just really awkward to build. That's the problem with it. Next up we have the Potala Palace, which probably the simplest way that I can put this is that it's a good wonder, but it's like the weakest of the wonders that give you free card slots or whatever. So I'll just go ahead and pop it into B tier. It's a decent wonder. It's not too expensive. It comes at a good time of the game. But it just gives you the weakest policy card slot of all of the card slot wonders. Not much to really say about Taj Mahal. It's just good. Like, just get it if you can without hurting your empire. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Like, it's just a good wonder. It gives you a ton of great it gives you a ton of score, which is great. But I wouldn't like go out of my way to get this. Oof, Venetian Arsenal. Oh my goodness. This is probably the, if not the most controversial, the second most controversial decision I'm going to be making in this tier list. I want to put this in F tier. I want to put this in F tier because navies aren't that useful. Navies aren't that good. Most maps I play don't use navies. However, you guys sent me so much feedback about the initial sort of sneak peek that I put up where the Venetian Arsenal was down in F tier. And I took all that feedback in, and you know what? You guys are right. It literally doubles the amount of production that you can invest into navies. So I'm going to put it up in B tier, okay? That's a compromise. I want this down here. You guys want it up here. I'm putting it in B tier. In the right situation, it's a really damn good wonder. However, it's just a little bit too situational to go up to A or S tier for me. It can be. If you're on a naval game with a huge map and a ton of people to kill, this is literally a beeline wonder. You go for this because it doubles the size of your navy. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys, but I really do think it's an F tier wonder 99% of the time. So I'll just put it in B. That's our compromise, okay? That's my reaching out with an olive branch to the community that loves this wonder. The Hermitage on paper, man, it's a really decent tourism wonder on paper. But the problem is that it's really, really damn expensive. It's nearly 1,500 production, and you just get 4 great work of art slots. It's super not worth it. It's super not worth it if you still have room for great works of art. And like you could build like 10 or more builders instead of this to place down national parks, to place down forest, prepare seaside resorts. It's just a really phenomenally bad return on investment. However, that said, there are situations in which I would consider building it. For example, if I'm doing like a mega city with Pingala, where I'm trying to maximize the total number of great works I have in a single city to maximize my tourism output, then I would probably go ahead and get the Hermitage. So I'll put it in D tier. It's not useless down in F tier, but I would be kind of reticent to ever build this. Actually, you know what? No. I'm going to put it in E tier. I think it's a little bit worse than some of these. Bolshoi Theatre is actually pretty similar to the Hermitage in terms of like its great work and its great people points value. However, it does have the other bonus where it gives you 2 free civics. And I think that's enough to push it up to C tier. I really do. I think it's enough to push it up to C tier. It's not an awful wonder. It's worthwhile building in culture games. But other than that, I wouldn't really ever go out of my way to build a Bolshoi Theatre. I actually totally forgot to introduce the industrial era wonders. But it's again, it's kind of a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them are really good, some of them are pretty bad. But let's go ahead and talk about the Big Ben. Now, the Big Ben is goddamn amazing. My heart tells me it belongs in B tier or A tier. Yeah, I'd probably put it in A tier, but I read a lot of your comments and you guys were saying, man, this wonder is just so damn good. Economic policy slots are like the second best one. So I'm going to put it in A tier. I can't justify putting it on the same tier as this. Well, maybe I can. Let me think about it. Yeah, I think it kind of straddles the line between A and S tier. So I'm just going to leave it there to trigger people who don't like it, that it's not on the right tier. Well, we actually managed to find our very first meme tier wonder, which is the Panama Canal. In my heart, it's a S tier because it's just a giant meme. However, in reality, in actual gameplay, it's an F tier wonder. Just, don't build it for any other reason than to have a bit of fun. There is actually a use case for this, by the way. If you position the canal correctly, you can get really good industrial zones with the canal, which is not bad in all honesty, because it has room for 2 to 4 industrial zones to get +2 adjacency from the adjacent dams, and certain configurations can get even more. But yeah, I'm just going to put it down in F tier. It's not really worth talking about. It's a meme wonder, just like the Golden Gate Bridge is a meme wonder. However, the next wonder is not a meme, and that's the Oxford University. This wonder gives you a 20% science boost in your empire. It's amazing. even if it's really expensive, even if it's hard to build, even if it comes late into the game, 20% science in a single city when you combine it with Pingala is so damn good. Pingala can give you a ton of baseline science and multiplier science, and this wonder will multiply your science. You can end up with ridiculous science yields thanks to this wonder. You can also do some like tech tree manipulation and stuff like that to get more value out of this wonder. So I'm going to pop it up into A tier. Ordzagaz, I don't know how to say this wonder, but you know, this is just like a wonder that's like kind of generally useful. If you're in a diplomatic victory game, it's worth picking up, especially because of all the extra diplomatic favor. But otherwise, you should probably just try to pick this up if you can, because if you have suzerainty of any city-states at all, you're getting extra value. And the AI really, really values diplomatic favor, so you can buy a ton of stuff off them, get all their gold, do all sorts of crazy stuff with diplomatic favor. So this is just a good wonder. It's just good. Thumbs up. Really good. Get it if you can. Statue of Liberty, on the other hand, it's probably S tier in diplomatic games, but otherwise it's a D tier in my heart. Like, really, its only function is to give you diplomatic victory points. So I even feel like D tier is being generous in my initial assessment. I think I had it down in E or F tier, but I'm trying to be a bit nicer to the really situational wonder, so I'm going to put it in D for now. There was a lot of argument over me putting Ruhr Valley in S tier, by the way, as well. And so for that reason, I'm going to straddle it on the line. I think it could very easily fit in A or S tier. And I know I'm kind of cheating by doing this, but I feel like sometimes the Ruhr Valley is S tier and sometimes it's just A tier. So I'm going to put it right there, right in the middle. No, you know what? I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to move Ruhr Valley up to S tier. I'm going to move the Big Ben down to A tier. That's where I think these belong. The Ruhr Valley just gives you such a ridiculous amount of production that you should always build it if you can. It does take a fairly long time to pay back its investment price, but I think it always pays back its investment price. There aren't a whole lot of wonders in the modern era, but a couple of them are literally game defining. The Eiffel Tower in particular, this is an A tier wonder. Even though you will never ever build it in anything other than a tourism game, this wonder, when combined with the Crystal Redentor, which we're also going to talk about right now, literally win you the game. So to put this in perspective, if you place down a seaside resort, you're going to get 4 tourism per turn. If you place down a seaside resort with the Eiffel Tower, you're going to get 6 tourism per turn. If you place down a seaside resort with a Eiffel Tower and Crystal Redentor, you're going to get 12 tourism per turn. So it literally triples the amount of tourism you get from seaside resorts if you build these two wonders. I don't think they ever make sense to talk about when they're not combined. So these two wonders are literally like attached at the hip for me. I don't think I would ever build one and not the other if I had the opportunity to. Like, in all honesty, if you're doing a tourism game, you need to build these, and they're so powerful that it's always worth building. The only time I would maybe consider building one over the other is if I was doing a reliquaries tourism game where I didn't have a ton of like national parks or seaside resorts. Then I would pick up the Crystal Redentor, and the only time I would pick up the Eiffel Tower on its own is if I didn't have a ton of relics and I just wanted room for my national parks. Like, for example, if I was playing Canada, if I wanted a lot of appeal for my national parks, then I would pick up Eiffel Tower. But really, these wonders just only really make sense when they're combined. Then we've got the next meme tier wonder, the Golden Gate Bridge. Again, it's just a meme tier wonder. Goes straight down to F. It's good in its use case, but its use case is so rare. Having it, like, here's a big problem with it. It's an expensive wonder that requires you to have a city filled with national parks to get value out of it. And a city that has national parks in it isn't going to have the goddamn production to build this wonder. So its use case, it's like its design just doesn't mesh with the benefits that it gives. Broadway, on the other hand, man, like, the thing is, Broadway, it technically should be as good as the Oxford University, but it really just isn't. It comes much later into the game. It's much more expensive. And so I just can almost never justify building it. If you can build it, it's good. So I'm going to pop it down into D tier. It's good if you can get it, but otherwise it's just kind of eh. Like, I would say on paper, it's maybe an A or B tier wonder, but like when you're actually playing the game is almost over by the time I ever finish this. On to the Atomic Era, which is the very last era for wonders. We're going to go ahead and stop off for the Estadio de Maracan. Sorry, no. The Amundson's Research Center. Sorry, my bad. This is a B tier wonder. Like, if you can get it, it's really, really good. Don't go out of your way to get it. It's kind of like, it sits like, you don't need this. You don't need this. Just like Venetian Arsenal is B tier. You don't ever need to build this wonder. The big problem with it, and like things like Estadio de Maracanã, is that all of these wonders are like an I win more button. By the time you're getting these wonders, you should be winning the game and already like uncontested. And you're just building these for the meme. Realistically, they should probably go down to E tier, but I'm going to put them up at B tier just like Estadio. Estadio and this go up to B tier, and then Sydney Opera House goes straight down to F tier, because the only time this is useful to build is in a tourism game, whereas these two can at least be nice meme builds in other times. And that's it for the Wonder tier list. I get that a lot of people are going to disagree with some of my reasoning here, and that's totally fine. I feel like a lot of these wonders, I want to be very clear here. Remember, any one of these wonders can be C tier or higher, with the exception of Stonehenge, which also deserves to be below F tier because this is probably one of the worst wonders in the game. Any of these wonders will be C tier or higher if you get them for free. If you conquer them off the AI, they're amazing. And like if you have them in their perfect use case, there's probably a justification for B tier for all of these wonders. But you kind of have to have some winners and some losers. And today our loser is the Stonehenge, because here's the problem. I would literally rather have a holy site and a shrine than a Stonehenge. I would rather conquer a holy site with a shrine than a Stonehenge. This wonder is pretty damn garbage. The AI prioritizes it a lot. It's not worth crippling your early game to build it. That's it for the World Wonder tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys agreed with a lot of my decisions, and it's okay if you disagreed. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to go ahead and check out my previous video, the Natural Wonder tier list. Bye bye.